Hi, everybody. Thank you for attending the IGDA Las Vegas June 2019 meeting. Before we get started, just want to let you all know that after the meeting, we don't have any food or drinks here this time. But after the meeting, we will be heading over to the Sierra Gold after we get kicked out of here. So just feel free to join over there. You got to be 21 plus to go there. But yeah, we'll be there talking about game dev topics and whatnot. Tonight's speaker is Dustin. He's a local indie game developer and he's an animator. And he published several games. He also co-hosts the Unity meetup group here at the Innevation once a month. So yeah, without further ado, Dustin.
Do we have any spare chairs? Wow. How's it going, guys? How are we doing? So I'm going to talk about mobile games. I'm going to give a brief history, basically from 2008 to today. But before I get started, let me just sit there and just briefly talk about the fact that I got to give a shout out to Larry, Gunnar, Grover, Sam. You guys, I don't know how many of the meetings lately you guys have been able to go to, but check this out. Look at this lineup. Look at this. IGDA, Discord, IGI, who taught us gambling inside and out, by the way. So now I'm an addict. That's just too cool. Esports Lab, Epic Games, and Valve. That's what we have for the last 6 months. So, I mean, just like, hey, how about some applause? Hell of a score. That's fantastic. So today, we have me, a local developer who occasionally makes mobile games from his house, which begs the question, just ask him. Just curious. Okay, we'll let it slide. All right, so let me do a quick introduction here. So yes, as you mentioned, I have been a character animator for over 20 years now. I've been doing television, movies, and games, predominantly television shows, but it's been my bread and butter for the last couple of decades. Here's just a little sampling of stuff I've worked on over the years. You got Cylons, Battlestar Galactica. You got Transformers. Got everything. Terminator. I even got to animate a CG Spock for the Fringe episode, right? More recently, a couple years ago, I got to work on Flash at the top of the screen there. And most recently, I got to animate Mr. Balllegs and the third and what I guess is the final season of Santa Clarita Diet, which sucks because that was fun. I had a good time on that. But so I love animation. That's what I love doing, right? And you're going, well, why are you doing games? Outsourcing. All the way back to when I was working on Battlestar Galactica, right? Outsourcing started rearing its ugly head, right? I was a couple episodes in, and the production went up to Canada, and I was just out. And I turned to my friends, and I went, guys, this is our future, right? We're going to get outsourced. So I started playing with Plan B, right? I started just kind of casually goofing around with game development, right? Blitz Basic, just some simple kind of stuff, right? And I tinker, but nothing all that serious because I still had work and everything was good. But then 2008 came around, and then I got serious. Anyone remember what happened in 2008? Specifically, iPhone. There you go. 2008 marks the beginning of the iPhone. Then I got serious. Then it's like, okay, wait, you had a portable phone that'll play games legitimately? I'm in. So then it became a nights and weekend kind of thing, right? So then I got serious, right? Decided, okay, I'm going to do this for real, right? Decided it's time to make my own company and that kind of stuff. And around that same time, someone was looking at my demo reel, one of my coworkers, and he made the note. He said, do you ever animate anything besides scary robots? So if you look at that, right? And okay, I know you're gonna wait. Optimus Prime is not a scary robot. I beg to differ. The dude, if you came against Optimus Prime, a gigantic sentient robot that's heavily armed, I'm thinking you soil yourself, right? So I think he constitutes, a scary robot. So, and there you go. So I formed Scary Robot Productions and got started basically, and it was a nights and weekends kind of concept. It was just to give you an idea how long ago this was. During the day, I was fortunate enough to be working on Halo 3. I was doing animation for cutscenes, Master Chief, and that kind of stuff, right? And then night, I'd go home and just try and make a game, right? And that was nights and weekends. And it was a long haul, but I finally completed it. I'll show you. Where's my... Oh, do we lose? Uh-oh. ¿Qué es este? Don't tell me my slides got messed up here. Nope, sorry. It's just me having a brain fart. Let me come back in here. Okay, sorry. getting a little ahead of myself. So let's talk about what we had at this point. So 2008 introduces the iPhone, right? And at this point, we're only 6 months in. So this is truly, truly early days. So if we look at the stats here, check this out. I love this, so cute. This is 6 months, right? Average number of games submitted to the App Store, 27 a day. That's a lot. Well, okay, early days, but still. For a total of 2,220, around 2,000, right? So the total number of apps submitted was 10K, right? So we're talking about 23% of all the games apps submitted were games during 2008, okay? So then I started working on Poke with Bob. I started 2008, like I said, 2 years of nights and weekends, right? And of course, when I first got it started, I had to do it with the game engine. Of course, I'm not a programmer, right? I'm an animator, right? So of course, I developed in Stone Trip. I used the everyone. Okay, who here has religiously used the Stone Trip's Shiva 3D game engine? Show of hands. Try this again. Who's ever heard of Stone Trip? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, Gunner's heard of everything. He's the. Don't think that counts. So why did I use Shiva? Simple. Number one, it had a WYSIWYG editor, right? What you see is what you get editor, which for the time, now, it's all ubiquitous, right? But at the time, the idea of being able to look in the window and see not only the game screen, but also a side screen where you can put everything in, right? That was novel, right? Truly novel at the time. Scripting. The scripting was done in beginner-friendly language of Lua. For me, that's a fantastic thing because I'd only used Blitz Basic. I've never taken a computer language. I've never been taught, so I'm just hacking away this stuff. Blitz Basic, I kind of played with basic programming, right? Lua was a nice stepping stone, so that was the easy way for me to sort of get into that. It was free to develop for iOS. This was big, right? The game engine itself, it's been so many years ago, I don't remember. Maybe, I don't know, like $150, a couple $100 for the full game engine. And with that, you got access to exporting to iOS for free, which was big because conversely, Unity at the time, and here's the other reason why, Unity was Mac only. The editor was Mac only back in 2008. I had a little Mac Mini. That was ugly, man. That was not pretty. In 5 minutes just to load up Unity. And on top of that, they charged for the iOS exporter. And I think, if memory serves correct, I think it was like something ridiculous, like $500. You guys can check me if I'm right or wrong, but I just remember it. At least that's the way I remember it, right? And then, so the editor itself, right? I still bought it because the editor was $150, right? But then you had to buy all the extensions. So that is basically why. And of course, what about Unreal? Unreal wasn't even an option back then, right? Unreal was not even, you couldn't even, indie games did not have a chance at it. So that was just not even a factor at that point, right? That was still a juggernaut. So, like I said, 2 years worth of nights and weekends, and I will show you the finished product. Give me a sec here. I'm going to just skip ahead in this thing just a smidge. So you don't have to sit through the beginning stuff. There you go. All right.
Ah, the iPhone. So many uses. I can use it to call my friends. I can use it to surf the World Wide Web. Or I can use it to kick your ass. Ante up.
That's an iPhone 1, by the way. Remember. 30 frames a second, just saying.
I'll bet 25. I'll raise your
I'll talk about that in a second.
You called. What you need? You drew 1. I'll take 3. You open. You raised 25. I'll call. Okay, let's see him. You've got 3 of a kind. Oh, and I've got 2 pairs. It's your cash. You raised 25. I'll call. And a moment of truth. You've got 3 of a kind. And I've got a pair. It's all yours.
So there you go. That was two years worth of nights and weekends. It was actually the beginning of 2011. I had it finished at the end of 2010, but I got so many people saying, you got to have multiplayer. If you don't have multiplayer, you're doomed, right? Of course, multiplayer back then was not Wi-Fi. There was no plugins for me. It was only Bluetooth. And back then, an iPhone 1 had Bluetooth connection that was about this far, you know. And then anything beyond that, the game broke, and it was just hell. But at least technically, there was multiplayer, right? So, but yeah, so to answer your question, I farmed out the art, right? The early days, and a very amazingly talented artist that I was lucky to find at the time named Daniel Thomas, whom I'm using even right now, all these years later. Whenever I get enough money in the bank, man, I go back to him. An insane art talent, right? So I got him on board. I found a voice actor named Ed Mace, right? And this is all Indie Gamer, the forum. This is where I found these guys, by the way, right? And I got Ed on board, and he just banged it out, and it was just amazing. So I basically said, look, imagine if Ash and Dirty Harry, Ash from Evil Dead, and Dirty Harry had a love child. That's Bob, right? That was what I told him, and this is what we got. So I'm thrilled, right? So yeah, so to answer your question, I released it February 18th, 2011, right? Finished it 2010, but I wanted to get the multiplayer stuff, so I held up to that point. Targeted the iPhone and iPod only. The reason why, two things. Number one, the iPad had just come out months before, right? It was insanely expensive, but it didn't matter because you couldn't get one anyways. So I didn't even have access to it, right? The iPhone, actually, I bought off of Craigslist. It was like a busted one that didn't have telephone abilities. I didn't care, right? It worked, right? And I could use it, right? So I had no iPad ability at that point. So it was iPhone and iPod. Anyone remember iPod? iPod only, right? Of course, pre-Android, so it's and I sold for 99 cents. Oh, this is so far back in the day that people actually charge for apps, and people actually bought them. I swear to God, no, this is true. It really did happen. Many, many, many moons ago, right? So when I say that I did the release, actually, and I say actually two simultaneous releases, and that's not true. Clear that up in just a second. But so back then, because there was no in-app purchase, there's no kind of ads or anything else, right? You had to do two versions. You did a light version, which was a test version, and then you did the paid one, right? So they'd download the light one. In this case, what I did is Bob would play like 5 hands, and then he would literally go, he falls asleep on you, right? And that's it, right? You can start the demo over, but you never made progress, right? But I say 2, but it's actually 4, because once the iPad finally did come out, right, there was no universal back then because the iPhone had a different resolution. So you had one build for iPhone, you had one build for iPad, and then you also had light and full. You had one game, 4 versions just for Apple, Oh, back in the day. So here we go. So I was incredibly fortunate. These are early days, so part of that plays into it. But if you look on your left, that is all games. I got mentioned in New and Noteworthy by Apple. Thank you so much, Apple. And on the right is the card game area, and I got not only the game but the free one side by side right there in the top left, right? So that was a big score. So what did it do for me? So the game started off in the 79th position. By the way, this is for all games, right? Early days, so this is still early, right? There's not a ton of competition, but there's still some really nice games out there, right? So I started 79th, and then the new Noteworthy came out, and it's climbed. It went up to 70, all the way up to 60, and to 43. So I got all the way up to the 43rd position, right? And kind of hard to see, but you can see like Bejeweled and Jenga and Uno and some big names up there, right? So I was thrilled. This is my first game, so I'm, and then here's the card category. Check this out. I'm number 2 in the card category behind Uno, head of World Series Poker, right? Which is, of course, Caesars, right? So as luck would have it, Caesars actually contacted me, right? And they said, we'd like to talk to someone in your business department. I'll see if I can track them down. And they said they wanted to partner with me, right? And they flew me out. And this is when I was in the middle of working on that Fringe episode, by the way, too, the animator one, right? I went to my producer, I'm going to Vegas for a couple days. Sorry, don't get pissed. But so I did, and I met with them, and it ended up being a partnership. They hired me as a consultant for a year, right? Pretty much the same pay as I was getting at my VFX job, right? And so I told the wife, let's pack up, let's just take a shot, and let's move out to Vegas. Didn't have to, but I figured if I'm going to do mobile game development, move out to Vegas to live cheaper, right? And I came out and they said, great, what we want to do is we're going to take Poke with Bob, right? And we want to expand it so you can play real money, live cash gambling all around the world. And I'm going, dude, I'm an animator. I got, this is not, so then we worked for a little while. We were going to work with a third party. And then 2 months later, they bought Playtika for $80 million. Playtika offered a turnkey system. And World Series of Poker went from 0% of the worldwide casino market to 75%, which they have today, And needless to say, they didn't renew me, but it was enough to give me a year's worth of nest egg, right? Consultant, and just keep plowing ahead. So, I no regrets, man. I'm thrilled. When they said we're done with you, I was kind of like, cool, man. Thank you. I was happy. So let's look at where we are now. We're going to move up to 2010. I know the game was 11 was the beginning, so I'm going to show the numbers for 2010 right there at the end. Okay. So now we're up to 86 games a day getting released to the App Store, right? Which means that we're getting 27K of games a year, right? Now we're up to 169 of total apps. So now, interesting quirk here. Games are only 16% of all the games, of all the apps submitted. Kind of an interesting drop. So let's talk about the top iPhones, the iPhone games for 2010. So interesting thing here, right? This is most downloaded free games, right? And look there, and what are the two keywords that you see repeated time and time again? Light and... That's what I'm talking about. This is the early days. Free games were just advertisements for the full game. That's the way it was back then. With one minor exception. If you look at the bottom, Zombie Farm. There's no free, there's no light, right? That's the harbinger of what's to come. But here we go. Now we look at the top selling paid games, right? And check it out. Look at this. They're all 99 cents. Plants vs. Zombies had the cojones to charge $3, right? Words with Friends and Tetris were getting $3, right? This is glory days, man. So, but what you also see is like Angry Birds Lite is a commercial for Angry Birds that you pay 99 cents for. That was the MO during this time frame. That was the interesting way it worked. Here's top grossing. Now, if you look here, what do we see? All of them are paid apps. Top grossing apps of 2010 were all paid apps, except for one, Zombie Farm. Here it comes. It's the beginning. Here it is, right? So, so check this out. This is a review I found from 2011, right, for the Zombie Farm game. I'm not going to play the whole review. I just want to play this one snippet. So this is a guy who's talking about the fact that he's introducing and explaining what a free-to-play game is, right? And I love this one little quote here. I'm just going to zoom ahead here just a second. Get rid of the ads. Bear with me. Let's go up to 20. All right, check this out. More ads? Dude, seriously? Okay.
Say what you want about casual gaming, Facebook, and mobile games, but it's my guess that they're here to stay. So we're faced with a choice. Learn to peacefully coexist, or be at constant odds with each other. I'm choosing the peaceful way, mostly because when I find a game under that category that I enjoy, there's no guilty pleasure associated with it, but rather I can proudly share this game with friends, family, and you guys. And that's the case with this app, Zombie Farm.
There you go. So, in a nutshell, embrace the overlords, right? That's the way it is. That's the way it's going to be, right? But, that was 2011. Even then, he was kind of going, dude, this is the future. Accept it, right? He was right. So, now we go into 2011. 2011 brings us the dreaded in-app purchase. This was the beginning. This is where everything started radically changing, right? Novel concept at the time. So what are the key purposes and usage of in-app purchase? Number one, this is like old school shareware, right? Back in the day, right? You would download the full game, right? But you only get a snippet of it. And then if you like it, you pay for an in-app purchase, boom, unlock the whole game, you're good to go, right? That calls back to the old Doom days, right? That's the classic mindset of that concept. Offer the player cosmetic upgrades in the game. That was the early beginning too. Change the character's appearances, that kind of stuff, right? Still early concept, not really changing gameplay, just a visual aesthetic change. Yeah, skins. Exactly. Then we start to introduce the notorious pay-to-win feature. Then it's one of those things, it's like, look, you can play this game for months, right? Or you can just pay us $3 and you get this tank that's going to beat the living hell out of anything that moves, right? And people are kind of going, here, right? So that was a new concept, right? So rather than having to sit through endless hours of play, you could jump ahead, right? Annoying, but still not the worst thing. The worst thing I thought is the introduction of the ubiquitous pressure point feature, which we still very much see today, right? This is the simple concept of, here's the item. Oh, sorry, you can't have it yet, right? You have to wait a little while. But if you don't want to wait, spend in-game currency, right? And then we'll give it to you right now, right? And that's the pressure point concept. So the race at the bottom begins. So at this point, games have already dropped to 99 cents, right? Pretty much across the board. No one charges beyond 99 cents anymore, right? And because of Apple's structure, there's nothing below 99 cents. There's no 50, there's no nothing. It's 99 or 0, right? So we have nowhere else to go but to 0, right? So that's our only choice of it. Yeah. So free-to-play games with in-app purchases quickly become the norm. That's just accepted, right? While it was an oddity in that review, right? It just becomes the standard. Premium apps are limited to the brave and the famous, right? And that's still true to today, I think. But yeah, I mean, if you want to throw it out there and pay, you can also revert it back down, but if it's a famous IP, then you can still charge, right? But that was kind of the methodology at that point. So I love this. 99 cents for a game? What a ripoff. Just saying. Yeah. I'm not going to pay 99 cents for a game that I actually had a review on that, Poker Bob. The guy said it was a ripoff, right? I paid 99 cents and it only entertained me for like 10 hours. Dude, seriously? Wow. But I mean, that's it. I mean, we have to accept the fact that, this is our market, right? And I don't know how many of you remember this story, but so at the very beginning of in-app purchase, had a really, really rocky start. Volley Village. Anyone remember this? Yeah? A couple of hands going up. So this is the early days, right? Where you had the ability of managing a village of Smurfs, right? And then they harvest berries, and berries become the currency in the game, right? So parents would unlock the game and give it to the child because parents are not the target audience, of course, right? So here's an example. So when the game starts off, right, berries you get right away, right? You collect the berries and it's like, here you go. But then it starts to creep up a little bit. Here the example is 10 minutes. 10 minutes and 53 seconds, right? You can either wait 10 minutes or you can hit a little button, use one of your berries, boom, you get it instantly, right? Yeah, it doesn't stop there, right? Then we go up to 7 hours and 56 minutes before you're going to get your stuff, right? This is the arc, right? This is the arc. So then you have to go to the store, excuse me, and then you're paying real money to get fake berries, right? What happened though, here's what happened. Apple had a glitch feature, whatever you want to call it. So the parents would unlock the phone, hand it to the child, right? When you unlock the phone, it is unlocked and it remains unlocked for 15 minutes. So the kids had a 15-minute window where they could go like this and buy every berry that shows up before they get locked out. And parents got the next bill and went, whoa, 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 right? They were getting bills of hundreds and thousands of dollars. So I found this article. This is from Forbes, right? And I love this. The article itself is just basically telling you what I just told you. But so Capcom made the game, right? I love this quote. Check this out. Capcom, once a premier video game brand with storied franchises behind it, they've recently tarnished their name by entering the mobile games market. I mean, it's got just the ultimate of we're going into the back alley kind of thing, right? It's like, I mean, make it like these little kids in the back alley kind of going, you got any free games on you? I mean, it's just like, come on, I mean, it's like the Dangerfield, no respect, So Apple ponies up and they say sorry, sort of. Apple offers a $5 iTunes credit to anyone that's messed up, been cheated, right? And also they'll refund 45 days worth of their stuff as an iTunes credit. You notice the thing here is they're not giving the money back. They'll give you credit, right? That was their way, that was their mea culpa, right? So that was it. And that's how in-app purchase started. But around this time, we also had the advent of the Android. He starts coming in, right? So with Android, the nice thing about that is because it was an open OS, right? All manufacturers could make their own Android phones. So instantly you had a level of competition, right? So you had a wide range of phones. You had super high-end ones and you had super low-end ones, right? An incredibly ranging kind of cost for everyone, right? But the key thing is that it's significantly cheaper than an iPhone. So obviously you're going to have an acceptance base that jumps very quickly. Cheaper target audience, of course, encourages a full shift to free-to-play games, right? So there's no doubt we're going that way at this point, right? So I found this article. I love this. Once again, back to Forbes, right? I love this guy. So he's basically saying iOS is for revenue. Android is for ads. Because basically, we're still good people. We're still willing to pay, right? So look at this. Apple, with iOS, has assembled a demographic that likes to buy online and buys in growing numbers. Android has assembled 3 times as many activations as iOS. So what you do depends on your business. So he's basically claiming that Apple's above it all. We'll still pay for games, right? Android, you got to give it to them for free, but no, we'll still pay for games. Not reality. I think once the Apple users start realizing that all their Android friends are getting games for free, I have what I think is a reenactment. So if we check this out, the iPhone user is the monkey on the left. The Android user is the monkey on the right. So if it plays, there you go. So the monkey on the left gets their app, and they're rewarded with a cucumber. Now the Android user, on the other hand, is rewarded with a tasty grape. So the Apple user is not very happy about this, but they're trusting, and they get another cucumber. They're kind of going, wait, that's a cucumber. Not happy. Not happy. Not happy. Well, the Android user is getting all these delicious grapes. Look at that. All right, look at this. Android is just loving it. The iPhone people? There you go. Here we go again. Boom. And for the record, I want to point out that on that second toss, he put it right back in the dish. That was a heck of a shot. I'm just saying. So the idea that Apple's going to remain above it all, not reality, right? So if we look, here we go. This is 2012. If we look at all the games that are the top grossing, by the way, this is top grossing games, right? Not downloads, but actually the ones that are making all the money. What do we see? Lots of free stuff, right? I went through, and as far as I could tell, all these, it's hard to tell because a premium game could any moment switch to free to play, right? So trying to track these down in present day for back then is a little difficult, but as far as I could tell, most of these games, if not all of them, are truly free to play already. One thing of interesting note, though, look at number 5, Pandora. This is the last time you're ever going to see a non-game in the grossing category. That's gone, right? So in 2012, we're still using Split, right? So we also have a separate list for iPad because, once again, we're not universal at this point. We still have 2 different builds, right? But here we're seeing because the iPad makes more sense because it's a large screen, right? And it's considered more productivity. So you see a few more productivity items in there, but we're still seeing free-to-play games, right? HD, that's the thing too. I actually had Poke with Bob HD, right? For the iPad version, right? And HD Lite, 4 versions, but that was it. So that's 2012. Now let's look at what we got in the store now. So now we're up to 170 games per day that are getting submitted to the App Store, right? We're up to 50,000 a year, rather. And then we're up to a total of 281 for all apps, 22% of those, right? So we're back in, it's a fluctuation, but we're still seeing similar numbers, right? For the number of games versus the number of full apps released. So I took a shot at my first free-to-play game. And before I go into it, I'll just play you the quick demo here. It's called Chick-Tac-Toe. This is actually a reenactment. If anyone's old enough to remember, Knott's Berry Farm used to have a live chicken in a glass case. You put a quarter in there, and it would play tic-tac-toe with you. So this is me just recreating a childhood memory. Oops. If it would play. Wait, let's go back. I thought I hit play. Hey. Android now. Oh, this iPhone. iPhone and iPad. Anyone ever have a Sprint HTC? I even did a Kindle release. Waste of time. There still isn't. There really, yeah. It's just there. It's not nearly as much because it's still a separate build and there's no you have no online
and
multiplayer kind of stuff.
I know Kung Fu.
There you go. So a simple game. It was for me. It was just beginning to go from what I'd used before into the new stuff. So here we go. So I released it in March 2012. This is my first game in Unity, right? So I made the shift, right? So for me, this is also trying to relearn a whole new game engine using Unity script, which is sort of like JavaScript-ish, right? It's just a derivative version of JavaScript. But once again, for me, it was a good stepping stone. Going from BASIC to Lua to JavaScript, Unity script, it was a good way to march on. No in-app purchase. I could have done it, except for the fact there's no plugins back then, and I had no way of writing anything. I just getting the game out was hard enough, right? So IAP was not even an option for me at that point. But I did do it with ads. You see I have a little banner ad, which by that time, banner ads were still accepted, right? Oh, by the way, everything old is new again. Keep in mind, I'm going to come back to that. But so you see banner ads at the bottom of the screen. But they fell out of favor, of course, and in favor of interstitials later on. But at the time, they were completely accepted. I reached all the way up to 191 for iOS for board games. And I got nearly 100,000 downloads if you combine iOS and Android. But here's an interesting fact. 5-to-1 ratio of iOS over Android. Why? I'm not totally sure. I think it's because this was early days for Android. And then, of course, like any traditional game, you have a spike on your initial release, and it trails off, right? The long tail. So my guess is simply the fact that I was a little ahead of the Android market. So I was more iOS than Android. All right. So now we move on to 2013. Here we go. The highest grossing iOS apps for 2013. And at this point, pretty much everything with the exception of Minecraft Pocket Edition. I think Minecraft was a pay, but it went to free later on. But everything else is, at this point, we're all free to play, right? The reason I have this up is I wanted to point out Puzzles and Dragons, right? It's a Asian game, right, that became really big, but it introduced us to something new. The birth of the gacha games and loot boxes. They actually do, because there's all this talk lately, but they've existed all this time, all the way back to 2013, right? Primarily overseas, but it still existed. So in case you don't know, for anyone that doesn't, I'm sure most of you probably read stories, but just in case. The concept is it's a purchase box with no prior knowledge of its content. So you're buying a box, right, with no idea what you're going to get out of it, right? So, of course, there's a major backlash, right, because of the fact that, these kids are getting it and they have no idea and they buy it as crap and they're pissed off and they keep buying and buying, right, and parents are freaking out. So Apple's like, okay. So in 2017, Apple demanded that odds be listed on the purchases. So that was their way of trying to cope with the giant pushback and wave. Google actually waited until this year to match suit as well, which I find surprising, but they finally did this year. But I might be a little too late, right? You guys probably seen in the news lately, there's been a lot of legislation that's been coming up. They're trying to regulate it. How much they actually understand on what they're trying to regulate, I don't know. Their general idea is that they're kind of trying to divide the dividing line is when you buy this stuff in loot boxes, is it cosmetic or is it pay to win? And that is the dividing line. And to me, I'm actually kind of on board with that concept, right? Because if you're trying to buy stuff that allows you to destroy your enemies, right? But you don't know if you're actually going to get it, then I think that is more attuned to the concept of gambling or risking when you don't know what you're going to get. But early days, I think Apple and Android took too long to self-regulate. As a result, government's going to step in. We'll see how that plays out. Here is an early version of what I found. It existed back in the day, the analog version. So parents, be aware that these things are out there, so you might want to be careful. I think they've been popping up in grocery stores and stuff, so just be afraid, right? Because you see all these great toys, you don't get them. You get the crappy stuff. So just saying. All right, so quick break here. Do a little trivia time. See if you guys can name this game. Came out around 7 years ago, give or take. It was done by a lone developer who reportedly just threw the game together really quick, right? Released it for free with ads. Had just really super cute graphics, easy game to pick up and play, but hard as to succeed. And it got millions and millions of downloads. Flappy Birds, right? Actually, no. I'm talking about my third game, Save the Titanic, which I will point out, Save the Titanic came out almost a year before Flappy Bird. I got to point that out. So, real quick, let me give you the trailer for this. Final trailer, I promise. No more trailers after this, I promise. So,
If you could go
third
back
game.
in time to that fateful night and change history, would you? Well, here's your chance to save the Titanic. Take command and rewrite history. Take destiny by the wheel.
Iceberg, right ahead.
This is the whole game, by the way. That's
It's
it.
your chance to become the hero. Or maybe you just feel like aiming for that overgrown ice cube.
Level with me, sailor. You're aiming for it, aren't you?
So are you ready to step up and be the hero that saves the day? Or are you just destined to become a footnote in history? Save the Titanic!
So, no, it was a combination of just, you had to turn it, and the meter went like this, right? So you had to do it before the timer ran out, right? So, I mean, this all came out of the fact that, I was actually trying to create a game that was kind of like Tempest, right? And how do you take the inputs of a Tempest control, right, and translate that to an iPad, right? And I was thinking you turn it kind of like the wheel, like you're on the Titanic, kind of going, oh, cool. And I go to my wife and I tell her this whole idea, and she goes, that's stupid. And going, okay, but I could do it really fast, right? So then it was a challenge. She goes, well, how long do you think it'd take you to make that, right? And I went, like a month. And she goes, all right, go do it. If you think, fine, do what you want, right? So of course now it's a challenge, right?
If you could go back in time to that...
Ain't worth that. We're watching again. So I made the entire game in 5.5 weeks from beginning to end just to prove I could do it, right? I'm still early days for Unity for me, but I'm getting a little better on it. But I just got to prove I can do it, right? This is only 2.5 months after Chick-Tac-Toe. I mean, we're talking like bang, bang, right? Created all the art in 3 days. That is why I didn't do the clay look, because I thought, it's cutesy. I just did it because it's like I know I could bang it out. I run it in a 3D program. I just did it, right? So that way I could just throw it together and get it done, right? Because at this point, I knew the game didn't do anything. I knew it was not going to do anything, but I just had to prove that I could pull this off, right?
You were charging a dollar for it?
No. It's all free to play, dude. Did you not see the last 5 slides? So I did. So I released it. I released it in early 2012 with no promotion, right? Of course. I mean, all I did was I put my friends' names in there, right? So the idea is like win or lose. It sort of like shows a snippet, right, of like what would happen. I did one is like if you fail, it would say like so and so was going to be the grandfather of this woman who's going to make hover cars. Do you see flying cars now? No, thanks to you. That was why I made the game. I just did it for punchlines, for jokes, right? So I put it out there, and it got 6 million downloads. I was not trying. This is the shortest time span I've ever made from a game, right? And it was just, but here's why. Because I tested it with just a few friends back at Jelly. Anyone remember Jelly up at Fremont Street a million years ago? So I walked around, had some people test it, and I said, okay, I got a good, here, this is a good number, right? I put it out there. 98% of the people that played the game got beat. Only 2% of the people could beat the game, right? So I made an impossibly challenging game, right? Just because, and then I just got trashed. I was 1 star, right? This game sucks. I can't even get past the first level. Dude, that's all there is. It was a joke, right? So, I mean, and it was one of those things, no one, and I Googled, I do a Google alert, right? No one talked about it, no reviews, right? But it just went vertical, right? And it just, I mean, at its peak, it was getting 7 downloads a second, right? So, and it did. It became the #1 iOS game in the App Store. And here, I have photographic evidence in case you don't believe me, right? I swear to God. Look at that, man. I mean, we're talking Temple Run is number 11. But I wasn't trying. It was a joke. This is my Star Wars kid moment, right? This was for my friends. It's like, no, you guys weren't supposed to see this game. This was just, I mean, so, you never know. That's my point.
I just feel bad for the guy that did that Minecraft game that's only number 30 on there.
There you go. Yeah. So what did I learn? What did we learn from the takeaways from Save the Titanic? Number 1, Guarantee that the player gets it as soon as they start playing. And see, this is where my parallel with, say, the Titanic and Flappy Bird, all joking aside, right? Is the fact that, like Flappy Bird, this is the whole game, right? Mine is this, right? As soon as you see it, you instinctively go, oh, there's a wheel. I'll turn the wheel. And you go, oh my God, that's the whole game. I got this, right? That brings the player in and it locks them in, right? Super hard is okay if the player senses progression, right? And both Titanic and Flappy Bird have the same kind of concept, right? You can see how when you screw up, right? You know, right? And Flappy Bird, you hit the pipe, right? In my game, you see the iceberg and you see the meter, and it's like, oh, I was so close, right? I'm going to do it this time, right? Ensure the player always keeps thinking just one more time, and that's kind of hand in hand, right? Because if you got that close, it's like, I can do it this time. Okay, this time. Okay, this time. I'm going to beat this freaking thing, right? And that's what happened, I think, is the fact that so many people would play it and fail and say, this game sucks. You can't beat it. And it's like, well, I'll download it. I'll show you I can beat it. And that's, I think, why it went viral like it did. It could be just like all the other games out there, only totally different. And what I mean by that is the fact that what I did and what Flappy Bird did were not novel, right? But there was novel elements to it, right? Turning your finger like this is not a new concept. But because I combined the theme of the Titanic, all that kind of stuff, right? It made it stick out, right? Flappy Bird, in this case, he borrowed some Mario-like graphics, right? But it was unique at the time, right? There's nothing else out there that was that simple and that looked that way. Excuse me. And then, if possible, always wield the ultimate tool in your games, and that's intellectual property. That was the key thing I also pulled out of this, is the fact that if I would have made this, don't hit the pier, right? And you're in a boat and you turn the wheel and miss the pier, it would have gotten 5 downloads. It was Titanic that drove it, right? And I mean, it wasn't it's public domain. I didn't even think anything of it. I just did it because it's what popped in my head, right? I'd love to say they gave all this thought and this is what I planned. I knew it was going to work. No, I completely backed into this whole stupid thing, right? But those are the lessons I learned. Unfortunately, I didn't actually learn them. So these are my next 3 games. I'm not going to torture you with them. I'm not going to go through them just briefly. The games are all fine on their own, right? I have made 3 new games, and they've all had varying levels of success and failure, right? But they all broke rules that I just went through, various ones, right? So it's the classic rule of history. Those that don't learn don't get to repeat history, I guess, in my case. So for me, it's sort of like a mixed thing, right? I mean, part of it has been just making games I want to play, right? And not focusing on what the lesson should be, right? And, it's lesson learned, So all these games I could come back and revisit and kind of go, okay, this is how I can improve it, but it still doesn't change the fact that there were things missed, right? That combined with, you also never know, right? You don't set out to make a bad game necessarily, but you don't know if the game is going to catch or not. So where are we at?
Did you spend at least a minute talking about Spiders and Mars? 1 minute to tell how quick you did it and what it was worth to you financially.
What time is it? I have no time up here.
You can do 1 minute on it. 6:43.
6:43? Okay, fine. Spiders and Mars. Okay, Spiders and Mars. Okay, so this goes back several years. It was a Unity meeting, right? And then if you remember, there was that Flash animation stuff up there, right? When I was showing the animation I worked on, right? So we were at the Unity meeting, and they mentioned a leap motion, which leap motion is sort of like a Kinect for your hands, right? You put your hands up there, and it'll detect your hands, right, in a pretty precise fashion. And they were talking about it, and they said, hey, leap motion, the thing sells for like $80, $100, but if you buy one, they'll refund you because they have a competition going, right? And they said, oh, but the deadline is like in 2 weeks, right? And they said, but if you want to submit a game, right, go for it. And then I looked at it, and I was scheduled to go to LA to work on the Flash TV show in 8 days. So I got it, and I had to wait for them to ship it to me. So for the first 2 days, I was doing it with no leap motion at all, right? But on the 8th day, I had to leave, so I packaged it up, and we just seen The Martian, right? So it's like, okay, fine. That was the theme, and it's just basically Tempest. I went back to my Tempest thing, right? So the idea is you use your left hand to move around the turret, and then these spiders come out, and they gradually work their way down, and you have to spin around and just shoot them, right? So this is the whole game, right? That's the control. Sent it out, and just went off to LA, and it won. It actually won the contest. Yeah, it actually, thanks. And then turned around and submitted it to Apple TV. They had another competition to make for that, and it won for best port. So it made crap from the store, but it actually did fine in contest. So, okay, so that's it.
In 8 days, that's so impressive.
Yeah, okay. So that was for Alex. Thank you. He made me. You saw that. Just my arm. Okay. Okay, so let's look at 2014, right? So at this point now we look, and here's what we start to see. I'm showing this. I'm going to buzz through a couple of years really quick, but I just want to make the points on this. What we're seeing is we're starting to see things gravitate towards a couple of categories, right? Even in 2014, we're seeing this, right? Excuse me, Clash of Clans, right? Candy Crush, Heyday, Kim Kardashian. It was brief, but it went away. Excuse me. The Simpsons, Slot Mania. So what we're seeing is basically 4 things. And then if we look at Android, we're seeing similar things, right? What we're seeing is we have the RPG, right? The massive online RPG kind of stuff like Clash of Clans, right? We have the Match 3, right? Candy Crush and all those likes, right? And then we have the tap games, going all the way back to the old Smurfs, right? That's how you collect the stuff, right? You're endlessly tapping your screen. So I categorize as tap games. And of course, the introduction of casino games, right? So you have casino games where you gamble, you put money in, and you gamble, and then you get you don't get the money out. So I cannot believe these things are that successful, but they are, right? But these are the 4 categories. So if we come into 2015, right? Once again, we're seeing basically the same thing, right? There's a couple of outliers. There's Madden NFL Football, Marvel Contest of Champions, or actually that's an arcade, kind of like a Street Fighter type game. But we're still seeing those 4 main categories, just represented over and over again. Up to 2017, right? We have the introduction of Pokemon Go, right? Which is, I still consider that a bit of an outlier because no one's been able to match it. And honestly, if there's not Pokemon there, that game would not have succeeded. So that's going back to the IP as well.
Pokemon Go was basically just ingress.
Yeah.
To the company's previous game, but with the Pokemon IP.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Keyhole. I was going to go into that, but yeah, they had already made the game years ago, right? And they rebranded it, threw a Pokemon on there, and it blew up, right? So that goes back to my point that IP does wonders for you. But we're still seeing the same categories. So now we come up to today, right? And if we look, here we go again. Now we do see the advent of Fortnite, right, and PUBG, right? That's the one thing that's kind of new in there as well. But with those aside, right, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to go into those because I can't replicate that. You guys can't replicate that. That's something you need an army of people, right? And since I'm kind of focusing more on realistic mobile, right, I'm going to kind of bypass those. But what I'm saying is if you want to earn massive money, then you need to make either an online RTS game, a tapper game, a casino game, or a match 3 game, right? No, that is not what I'm saying at all. The reason I'm saying no is because gross does not equal profit. Yes, these games are insanely successful, right? But here's the dirty secret. They spend a lot of money doing it, right? Here's the thing. It's all about the CPIs. Cost per install. What that means is companies are they're paying people to download their free game. That's backwards, right? Isn't that insane? They're paying to have people download the free game, right? Look at these numbers. Amazon, I don't know why Amazon is such an insanely large number, so we're going to pass over that. But Google Play, on average of $1.20, and this is January 2019. These are relatively recent numbers. And iOS, $2.37. They're averaging, and this is an average number. So if the average free game, right, they're paying over $2 per person to install the game. And you understand, everyone that downloads the game doesn't play the game, doesn't hang on to the game, right? So, I mean, the retention rate is incredibly small, and the retention rate is everything, right? But that means if 10 people download the game, right, and only one person hangs on to that game, that means that one person has to spend the equivalent of $23.70 just to cover the cost of the other people that dropped out. And that's not even profit at that point. That is just to get back to where you were, right? So you're kind of like, why is that even feasible? Why is that possible? And that's because there's a thing called whales, right? The average player doesn't pay, right? Like me, I'll watch ads or something like that, but I don't pony up, right? That's just me, right? Most don't. I think the number is well over 90% that don't pay, but whales do. These are the gamers that just cannot wait, and they have discretionary cash to buy all this stuff, right? So look at this. This is from 2015, but I think these numbers still hold up to present day. This is the average spent by player in the top 25 mobile games. Now, Game of War is a total outlier. I gotta believe this, because if you can see that number, it's $549 per player is spent on average, right? So you gotta believe that there are these insane whales that are spending thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in this game, right, to compensate for that number. That's, but okay, so we factor that one out, but you still look at the mass of these numbers. The range goes from like $200 in the $200 range all the way down to like 60, 50, and 30. Minecraft being like the little trail in there. They only pay $6.50, the average player, right? But I mean, these numbers are insane, right? And that is why they do it, right? That's why they're paying, and that's why it is so hard for a free-to-play game to have traction, because I can't pony up that kind of cash, right? And that is an insane amount of cash to try and earn cash. So if we're not going to go that route, if I'm going to say that's not the way to go, then I guess what I'm talking about is the advent of the hyper-casual game. Be casual. Be hyper-casual. This is the new hotness, right? This is basically into 2016, 2017 is where we start seeing the talk about this game. Now, the funny thing about this, if you look at this, pretty much I can't tell if this is like a bunch of successful games or a game jam competition, the end results, right? That is kind of the key factor when you see a hyper-casual game, right? Is the fact that with the one exception on the top left, that one they put way too much effort in it. That actually looks kind of pretty. But the other ones, I mean, third from the top left, they're freaking blocks, right? But these games do well. So let's talk about what constitutes a hyper-casual game. Simplistic graphics and gameplay, as we saw, right? Kind of like I did with Titanic, right? I was sort of like a precursor to that concept, because you have to be able to look at the screen, right, and just know instantly what you're getting into. Rewarded videos to continue playing, right? This is a very simple concept, right? When you lose, you either start back at the beginning or, hey, watch a video for 30 seconds and I'll let you progress on. And rewarded videos are fantastic. That's an everyone wins scenario, because what happens is the gamer's going, oh God, please show me a video, right? And the ad network is going, they're begging to see my video, right? So as a result, they turn around and pay the game maker more. He's going, hey, he really begged, so here you go. So it is a triangle where like all three parties actually do win, right? So in this sense, rewarded videos are sort of like the lesser evil concept. Usually no in-app purchase. Most hyper-casual games do not have any kind of in-app purchase stuff, right? A couple of them break that rule, but by and large, it's all about interstitial videos, just videos that pop up, or rewarded ones where people are asking to watch the videos. Most in-game purchases are cosmetic, right? They don't really affect gameplay. This is not pay to win. This is simply change your characters out, right? Crossy Road is a fantastic example of the perfect poster child for the hyper-casual. I mean, prettier graphics maybe, but still in that same vein. So how do they make money? And this is where it kind of gets scary, right? So if we look at the curve at the top right up there, right? That's revenue per active user. This is core games, right? So you can see what they're doing. This is the whales, right? They have a smaller user base, but they're just relying on those whales to come up and give them all their money. Conversely, hyper-casual games are doing the inverse. They're banking on enough people to just come and play briefly that they have enough warm bodies to boost and get the ad networks to actually give them a decent rate on the videos. But it's a situation where they don't have whales, right? Because they don't have any purchases. They're just banking on enough warm bodies. So the point is you have to have massive amount of users, right? And especially if you have churn, right? If they're turning over and they play the game for a little while and bail, right, you got to have a lot more people replacing them. Otherwise, you drop off and you just get crushed and you do not get the numbers. The ad networks will lower the rates and then you're gone. You're not making your money. Okay, so let's come back. Final time. Let's come back to the Apple Store and let's look at our numbers, right? So we left off at 2014. So let's go into 2016. We are now up to 1,000 games a day in 2016, right? So you put your game out there, you're competing against 999 other games on a day, per day. So we're having 281,000 games, right, that you're competing against, right, on top of what's already been out there, right? So, and then interesting fact, you see how many games were released. So now games are up to 43% of all apps released, right? Anyone sensing a trend here, right? So what do we want to think about 2017? Anyone want to take a stab at that?
4,000.
4,000, 3,000?
6,000.
6,000? You ready? Check this out. This is going to freak you. 158. I checked this number 4 times over, right? This is Pocket Gamer showing these numbers. I don't know. My thought, and you guys can interpret this as you like, my thought is we reached the bubble and people put enough effort in there and kind of went, it ain't working for me, right? I think also, and I could be totally off the base here, but I think around this time frame is also when you saw all the game engines going free, right? This is true because Unity and Unreal, and there's another game engine, it wasn't Lumberyard, there's another game engine that started it. Actually, I saw at GDC years ago. They were the first one to go free. It was like the physics engine or something that had one, but it was a German one. But anyways, Unity and Unreal quickly matched, and they just said, yeah, we're free too, right? And my guess is, and in total theory, I have nothing to back this up. I'm just pulling this out of thin air, but I'm right. I think that's what happened, was the fact that you had this massive wave, right? It cost you nothing. Literally nothing, right? For Unity and Unreal, neither one of them, until you start making enough money, then they'll come back and say, we want some money back, right? So there's nothing, so everyone started doing it. And I think that's why. Because check this out. 2017 was not like an oddity. Look at this. 2018, 72 per day. Look at that. We haven't seen that since like 2010, right? These are the numbers we're seeing. 72 games on average per day. And now we come up to, this, of course, we're only the first half of 2019, but look at this. We're down to 52 games a day on average to the App Store. This is according to Pocket Gamer. And I hit refresh on this numerous times. I'm kind of going, I'm in an Excel spreadsheet to calculate the numbers and kind of going, am I missing something here? I redid it 4 times. This is what they're reporting. This is an interesting trend. To me, this is the most optimistic thing I can say is the fact that I'm hoping that we've seen the curve. We've seen the push, and people are starting to kind of throw in, okay, fine, I'm not going to make Clash of Clans, right? And walking away. They're not going to make their millions. And it's a lot of effort. I mean, anyone that's made games, you know it is a lot of effort to make a game, right? So I'm hoping that this is the trend, right? We'll see. So to wrap up, final takeaways. Be casual, but not hyper casual. I think casual games are definitely the way to go for us indie developers. Okay, let me take that back. If you have a team, 10, 20, 30, 100 people, dude, go make Clash of Clans. I totally back you on that concept. But if you're more like the traditional indie gamer, right, where you're an idiot that does it by himself, or does it with a small group, right, you got to be realistic on what you can achieve, right? So keep it simple, stupid. Live by that, man. And I've broken that rule so many times, and I gotta learn that myself. Keep it simple in terms of the game, in terms of the visual style, in terms of everything, right? That the person gets it and they look at the screen and they just know, right? The gamer should get the idea on site, an invisible onboarding. So what I'm talking about here is, as I said, right? Go back to Flappy Bird, go back to Save the Titanic. You look at it and you just instantly know. And at most of those hyper-casual games you saw, by the way, too, all the screens, you looked at it and kind of go, oh, okay, you can just understand just by looking, I get this game, right? You got to do that. You have to do that. Invisible onboarding, what I'm talking about there is all games have tutorials, right? Remember the good old days when you had Nintendo, you had a book of 40 pages and you had to read through it to figure out what the heck, this button does what, and you need to make that go away. You need to make the tutorials embedded in the game. You need to make it so the person is playing the game, right, without a second thought, and before they know it, bless you, they're picking up on how the game plays, right? So the tutorials need to be there, but they need to be invisible. And so that's why I say invisible onboarding. So you get the player on, and then over time, introduce new aspects, right? And let them pick up on that, and they will love that. Once they discover a new feature, and they feel like they discovered it themselves, right? Like, invisible areas that pop up, right? Those things really reward the players. They love that. I love that. I'm truly a gamer. Give the gamer a reason to play one more time. This is the crucial thing. Make the game loop suck them in, right? You want them to, it's like, okay, I really need to go get myself something to eat. One more time. You want that. That's what you've got to strive for. Offer rewards to continue playing. This is part of the way of making that happen, too. Offer new content, characters, and things like that, right? These are the things that you have to have them aspire to something, right? I mean, Subway Surfer is the best at this, right? They have missions and this kind of stuff, and a lot of games do this too, right? Where there's just something, it's like, okay, I should be done, but I want to achieve, I've done 4 of the 5 tasks. Let me just do it one more time and do that 5th task. That's brilliant. That's, you make the person want to play. Make it pretty, not minimalist. This is where I'm breaking with hyper-casual, right? Hyper-casual is great, except for the fact that the people that make the hyper-casual games, and the big companies are on this, by the way. Now, if you listen to some podcasts that I don't have links to, but I can dig it up if you're curious, the big companies see money and they jump into it. They're making hyper-casual games like every 2 weeks. And the idea is they throw it out there, right? And if it gets any traction, then they go back and then they actually finish it, right? Then they add content, they do all that kind of stuff, right? But this is totally backwards. But because they can do this so much, and have so many people that are doing this, right, that this is not an area you want to play with, right? I honestly believe that you need to make it more distinct. So that's why I'm saying make it pretty, not minimalist. You need to make it more eye-catching, not game jam-ish, right? Not programmer art, if you want to have a better chance. And finally, if at all possible, feature an intellectual property, right? That is key. That is why Titanic succeeded. And, oh, by the way, just to point this out, as a matter of fact, as luck would have it, starting today and going for the next 2 days at the MGM, there is a licensing convention going on. I'm going tomorrow. I'm going to walk around, right? You can find different things. Grumpy Cat, Grumpy Cat won't be there, but the representatives will be. Sorry, moment of silence for Grumpy Cat. Sorry, I'm sorry. Too soon. Hey, they're there. Well, at least they're supposed to be there. I don't know. I'll let you know if they're there. But having an IP does so much work for you, right? You can have a fantastic game that'll never get seen, right? And I hate to say this, you can have a crappy game with an IP that blows up. It's not right, it's not fair, but that's reality, right? But in most cases, an IP will not be something that we can get, right? Because most of them are very expensive, but that doesn't mean that you cannot look out there. There's tons of public domain stuff out there, right? As I demonstrated with Titanic. There's tons of things you can still look at that will have a following and will get you a good start. So definitely, if you can find any way to put intellectual property in your game, by all means, do it. And that would be it, guys. Thank you so much. Preguntas.
Anybody have questions?
Cool, I'm done. Thanks. I paid Alex to ask me something, so it doesn't look that embarrassing. This is make it good. I told you. I paid you good money for this.
Can you discuss the ad revenue that Apple does, or even Android does? Google does with in-app purchases. Is it still? Do you know those numbers? Do they divulge?
Well, okay. So, you're talking about ads.
So before in-app purchases, they took 30%.
Yeah, they still do.
So what is it today with in-app purchases? Do they?
Well, in-app purchases are still done through Google, and they're still done through Apple, right? So it's still a 70-30 split on both ends, right? Okay. But if you're talking about ads, no, ads are a totally different beast, right? And ads are kind of a strange thing that it plays into. Oh, and I'm sorry, I buzzed right past it. If you think back, you know what? Let me go back real quick. I meant to show because I said everything old is new again. Check this out. Look at the hyper casuals. Banner ads, they're back. Look at that. The banner ads are back. People are stomaching them again, right? But the banner ads traditionally don't make a lot of money unless you have a massive amount of people. That's the key reason why we dropped them, is because gamers got PO'd about having banner ads, right? And unless you have a ton of people, it really isn't beneficial. But because that's what they're targeting, that's actually viable for them. Interstitials are where all the money's at. Rewarded videos in particular, as I said, that's where the best money's at, right? In terms of how much money they make, that completely depends on how many people are looking at it and how many people you have, right? Daily active users, DAU, that decides what ad networks are willing to pay you. So the more popular the game, the more they're willing to shell out for their general rates.
How much did you make from the games rather than just your normal everyday work?
Well, so as I mentioned, when we were talking about Spiders of Mars, right? I went back to work in LA, and that was because the money ran out, right? So it was a situation where around, 2014 or so, right, where I picked up the phone and called LA and I just said, hey, if you guys ever want to throw me some, freelance work, I'll come back to town. They said, can you be here Monday? So I am in an amazingly fantastic situation, right, where I get to just like helicopter in, right, do some weeks or a couple of months worth of work in LA, right, earn the LA money and retreat back here and use that to subsidize the game development, right? So to be honest, no, it's not anywhere near where it needs to be to sustain me. Part of that is also my fault because as I said, I'm not learning my own lessons, right? So that's something that I have to deal with on my own. But so I still believe that it is a viable thing, right? If you have a way of getting it out there, right? And that's Achilles heel of mine is marketing. That's something that I've never been fantastic at, right? And I'm trying to improve each game. I try and do better. But getting a fantastic game made and getting it seen, both are equally important. But if you can do that, then I still believe there is potential in the market. I think it's insanely hard, and we're panning for gold. We're buying lottery tickets, the equivalent of, but I still think it's viable, but I would not quit the day job until it becomes legitimately viable.
I do want to follow up on that. Again, if you're comfortable, some people are comfortable sharing these numbers, and I think a majority of game developers aren't. And so it's totally fine. But I am curious, how much did Save the Titanic make?
No, I'll tell you because I'll tell you outright. I'll go ahead. I mean, it's been enough years, right? So no, but here's the key factor though. Unlike Flappy Bird, right? Because Flappy Bird, the thing I didn't mention about Save the Titanic was I got all those 1 stars where people are trashing the game, so I freaked, right? They hate my game. So I immediately made an update where I lowered the difficulty, right? And people started beating the game, right? So the good news is I started getting 5 stars. If you look at Save the Titanic, it is all 5 stars, all 1 stars, right? Which, and I got to the one review, my favorite review. I love this. Someone actually wrote saying that you should never play this game. When I play this game, I close my eyes and I think of the millions of people that died on that ship. Well, that's why it sank. They had too many people on it. No. But when I lowered the difficulty, right, people beat it and they kind of went, okay, cool, done, right? Flappy Bird never has an end, right? That was the thing that one thing that I did fail on Titanic was the fact that I didn't have that loop, right? I had a tight loop, but once you got past that point, you were done, right? So it went up. And then right when it hit is when that new release came out, and then it went back down. And the other factor, too, was that the new devices started coming out with higher screen resolution. And my plugin was so crappy that because there's more pixels on the screen, the wheel was being calculated as turning faster. So the game was actually easier to play on newer devices, right? And I just, at that point, I was kind of like, so I did not correct it. So those factors came in. So it was, I hit and I plummeted, right? But all told, I will say that over that short time frame, it made over $30,000 worth of ad revenue. Unfortunately, I used a company called the MobClicks, and they went bankrupt and took a chunk of my money with them. So, lesson learned: don't go with one company. Make potential of having backups and that kind of stuff for other companies. But that was it. And I mean, so the point when this is several years ago, right? So if you have a game and it has to get up in the top 10, I mean, the hockey stick euphemism is so legit, right? If you were in the top 50, you've got, like Happy Meal money, right? If you're in the top 10, you're looking for a new car, I mean, that's the reality if it stays,
Yep. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Any other questions?
So with all the things with the gotcha boxes and all that in mobile industry, do you think there's a potential place anymore for card games like Hearthstone or any like the Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon games on mobile anymore, especially with all the, with the fear of loot boxes and how in the gray area card games kind of fall into the, not really loot boxes, but maybe a little bit kind of like loot boxes?
Yeah, that's a super tough question. I don't know. I mean, the only one that can answer that are the people in DC, right? Because, unless, like the MPA, the ESRB, right? When when games realized that they were on the verge of getting regulated, right? And here come all these government people. They come in, oh, go, we got this, and they instantly came up with the ASRB, right? So now that the government's kind of knocking on the door, kind of going, oh, this is bad, maybe Apple and Google will get together, right, in this weird kind of mix and say, okay, fine, we are going to handle this and we're going to do it this way. So if they do it, at least it might be more passable. It might be a new system that allows more intervention, right? Especially for kids. That's the biggest thing is that, kids are gambling. That's the whole thing, right? Welcome to Vegas, dude. But then that's the big fear, right? The kids gambling, right? So if there's some way to intervene and kind of prevent that, some kind of lockout system or something like that we can create on our own, then that's fine. But if the government steps in, then yeah, I think loot boxes go away. I think loot boxes that give you pay to win go away. So yeah, I mean that would kill any one of those kind of card games, Hearthstones, all those kind of things. I think it would potentially really damage them for sure. Hey.
Would you ever recommend selling one of those small casual games or just stick to the free app with ads?
Funny you mentioned that. My next game is going to be premium. I'm going to go ahead and roll the dice on that. There are the ones out there. There's there's a couple of games like Downwell is a perfect example of a game that is incredibly simplistic, but insanely hard, right? But he's selling it for like $3. Wow. I mean, and he's succeeding too. Dude, made bank. So I'm hoping that either I'm delusional or I'm seeing the future. And I'm hoping that we may see a swing back because there's been this massive backlash, right? Because of this thing. And to me, the irony is the fact that, dude, I just want you to pay 99 cents. Pay me 99 cents and I will give you the whole game. They're like, oh, I'm not going to do that, right? It's like, okay, free to play. Oh, this is great. Okay, I'm going to buy $500 worth of stuff now. Yeah. I would have given you that stuff for 99 cents, right? But now that we're seeing this, right? Now that we're seeing this shift, right? And this pushback, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, I'm hoping that we might see people going, wait, I can just pay 99 cents and I own the whole game for the rest of my life? Yes. Oh, cool. And I'm hoping we kind of go that direction, because, I mean, for me, trying to do in-app purchase stuff, right, as well as in-app purchase combined with ads and rewarded videos and that kind of stuff, it is so hard to get it right. I mean, especially as a one-person team or a small team, there's so much dynamics and so much psychology that goes into this. And all the big companies, right, have an army of guys that are analyzing every bit of data and doing these A/B testings from hell where they know everything, right? And this is not something that we can really accomplish, So I'm hoping that premium is a viable thing in the future.
So I'm not a gamer. I'm not a developer. I'm just his dad.
Thank you for coming.
He develops games. So I have two questions, or one comment. When everybody's zigging, it's good to zag. So your idea about charging for all the features is probably a good idea right now.
Especially if there's IP involved.
Exactly.
But I'm hinting. So anyways, go on.
Kind of a marketing concept. My question is, when it comes to getting people to advertise in your in videos and things like that you mentioned, is that something you negotiate in advance of releasing your game? How does that work?
No. Traditionally, you can most people do it by having mediation services, right? There's a bunch of, Google Ads, there's all kinds of companies that will handle that for you, right? And the beautiful thing about that is rather than worry about it yourself, you have this company, right? And then you can have a list of ad networks that the company manages for you. And they do this waterfall technique where they're constantly going out and saying, and they're handling for you. So if your game takes off, they turn around and they go, okay, this game's doing great. Now we want these numbers. And then whoever offers that goes to the top of the list, right? So that is a fantastic way. The trade-off though is if they're doing it, they're going to take a little slice of that from you, and you have to take on faith that they're not hosing you, right? And traditionally, they also are ad networks to themselves, so they will always be on that list, and you don't know where they're going to put themselves on that list. You have to take on faith that they're truly putting the best value up there. But if you don't want to do that, you can do that yourself. You can reach out to all the ad networks and do that yourself, and you will get top rate. but you're going to be also doing that like beyond full time. So if you have the person that can do it, absolutely. Otherwise, these mediation ad network services are fantastic. We good? Go for it.
What would you say is the importance of the screenshots that you provide with your app? I don't know if they do that on the Google Play Store. I'm only familiar with the App Store. But the little description that you give and the screenshots, how important do you think those are to the success of a game, or are they just kind of there?
150%. Yeah. Because I mean that is you don't get a second chance to make a first impression, right? You have to have something that you especially your very first image has to be the best of the game. And I failed on this a couple of my earlier games too, because back then I just want a game out, get it out. So I would just grab whatever I could and throw it up there, and not even worry about the order. That is something that I've much more focused on in present day, right? Whatever looks the best. Whenever you have the most stuff blowing up, when you have the most, like the biggest, like one scene where like the character's jumping down, that needs to be your first screen, right? So ideally it looks beautiful, and kind of like what I said with the hyper casual thing, they should be able to look at that image and totally get the concept right there, right? If you could do that, then you significantly increase your chances the person's going to look and go that and download the game. I mean, come on. I mean, Netflix, right? You look at the picture, you instantly get an idea of what you're going to look at, before you move on, right? And the same is true with mobile games as well. Okay. Hurry.
Do you think we'll ever see a resurgence of the thousands of games out on the app stores per day, or is at this point is it going to go in an opposite direction where it's going to just go down, down, down? So we're getting more like 10 games a day kind of point.
I think we're at a lull right now. I think it will come back, right? But I don't think we're going to see 1,000 a day, at least not for a long time, because you have people play the lottery because they see the winner. Right? But after so many times, at a certain point, most will just kind of give up and realize that it ain't going to work, right? So I think that's what happens with most people that kind of go, they see a Flappy Bird and it's like, oh my God, I want to become rich overnight, right? And then they spend 6 months making a game that they do or don't finish, or if they do, and they just kind of throw it out there, right? So, no, I think that you're invariably going to have people that want to make games, right? So they will always be a number, but hopefully it stays moderate, and it's just because you have to do so well to make any amount of money. And I'm hoping that most people kind of just throw in the towel, and makes it easier for discovery, because that's the biggest issue right now is discovery, getting your game seen, and if you have fewer people, fewer games out there, you have a better chance of getting exposed. Poker with Bob, that's one of the key reasons is the fact that, I mean, I'm proud of the game, right? I'm not dissing my own game, but it helped that there was not that much competition at the time. It was easier to get exposed, right? If I released a Poker with Bob today, it is doubtful that it would get a new and noteworthy kind of reveal by iOS or Android, right? Just not because they think it's any less, right? It's not like it's a lesser game. It's just the fact that there's 1,000 that are just as interesting. But hopefully, this is the new norm.
I guess as a follow-up to that, what do you think would then instigate the next boom?
The only thing I could think would introduce a new boom at this point, because we have free game editors, we have low entry of barrier. If there was some kind of upheaval in terms of Apple and Android where they did the disbursement of riches, right? If they did some kind of new discovery system that allowed a lot more apps to become successful and not be dominated by the companies that are spending millions and millions of dollars, right, to get their game out there and exposed, then I see people taking a new stab at it, and the numbers increasing. But I don't see that happening. So I guess the point is I don't think it's very likely.
Hey. All right. So I've been watching your stream. I know you can only tell so much. I know you mentioned an IP being involved. But what other lessons or mindsets are you taking towards this game since you're going to put a price tag on it? Are you changing anything major, or are you pretty much doing the same thing?
Doing the same thing. Because of all the freelance animation work I had recently, the coffers are full, so I'm able to bring my artist who worked with me before back on. So my art is stepping up significantly. So that's a big step. I'm keeping it simple, stupid, right? The controls, if you want to see it afterwards, I'll show you afterwards off camera, right? But the key thing is the controls are left, right, jump. That's it, right? And I'm doing a platformer jumper kind of game, an arcade jumper game that, I mean, something similar to like a Spelunky, that kind of thing, right? Or Super Meat Boy, but not as challenging, right? So I'm going into territory that's been done a lot, but I'm working off of a novelty aspect. And what I'm banking on is the fact that I'm not making a game that going, oh, this blows Super Meat Boy out of the water. No. I'm making a game that's more accessible, right, to a wider range, and it also has novelty in terms of the characters' intellectual property and that kind of stuff. So I'm banking on the fact that by keeping it simple, right, and following these other games that were successful as guidelines, that hopefully I will get something in the right direction. No más? We good?
We good.
All right. Thanks, guys.